Luke chapter 11 starts out with Jesus' famous teaching on the Lord's Prayer. If you were able to watch our previous lesson on the Lord's Prayer, you'll recall that the key to effective prayer is more about the motive of the heart rather than the elegance or volume of words. If you missed it, I encourage you to go back and watch it. But to summarize quickly, Jesus was specifically calling out the Pharisees and chief priests for the way they turned prayer into a spectacle, with their lengthy public prayers so that they might be seen and exalted by the masses. Jesus pointed out their appetite for the esteem of men rather than true relationship with God. Jesus' theme of motive carries through Luke chapter 11 and ends with the scribes and Pharisees being outright scolded by Jesus. Here's the story. One of the Pharisees that was listening to Jesus teach invited him to dinner. So Jesus went to his house and sat down to eat. It all started when the Pharisee hosting the dinner got offended that Jesus didn't perform the ceremonial washing before the meal. This washing was done not for health reasons, but as a symbol of washing away any contamination from touching anything unclean. Our host, along with the other Pharisees, loved making a public show of their washing as a sign of their spiritual excellence. And what's more, they demanded that everyone else follow this practice, even though it was originally only intended for the priests. Jesus held nothing back in his response. He said to the man, "You Pharisees clean the outside of the cup and dish, but inside you are full of greed and evil. Fools! Didn't he who made the outside make the inside too?" You see, because the Pharisee was so obsessed with ceremonial purity, he had neglected to address the filth that was in his heart. He was sure to wash himself on the outside, like one would wash a cup or a dish, but he left the inside full of greed and wickedness, never bothering to deal with those sins. Jesus was saying that he was no more pure than a dirty cup. Jesus condemned the Pharisees for outwardly appearing saintly and holy, but inwardly remaining full of corruption. Jesus accurately labeled these Pharisees fools. God, who made the outside of each person, also made the inside. In other words, God is just as concerned with the inside as with the outside. He's less concerned about what you do and more concerned about who you are, because who you are determines what you do. Jesus continued his reprimand, saying, "Give from what is within to the poor, and then everything is clean for you. Woe to you, Pharisees! You give a tenth of mint, rue, and every kind of herb, but you bypass justice and love for God. These things you should have done without neglecting the others." Again, Jesus addresses the motive of their hearts, the importance of the inward over the outward, particularly the importance of a right attitude when giving to the poor. The internal attitude must match the external action in order to be truly clean. Although they were keeping the tiniest details of the law, they were forgetting justice and the love of God. Jesus wasn't condemning the practice of tithing. It was how they had been completely neglecting the larger issues that were far more important, such as dealing correctly and fairly with people and building a true relationship with God. He continued his rebuke. "Woe to you, Pharisees! You love the front seat in the synagogues and greetings in the marketplace." Again, we see that the Pharisees are motivated by their love of public importance and personal honor. The elders sat on the seats of honor in the synagogues, at the front, near the place where the Torah scrolls were kept. Those seats faced the congregation. To receive respectful greetings from the congregation was a high honor. Jesus condemned them for their attitude that focused on the perks of their position, while forgetting their responsibility to be teachers. The Pharisees loved to receive honor and esteem from the people, but they didn't love them. They didn't serve them or care about them. Instead, they looked down on them as lower than themselves. Before moving on to the scribes and lawyers, Jesus made one final remark to the Pharisees. "Woe to you! You are like unmarked graves. The people who walk over them don't even know it." Jesus really nailed them on this last comment. He basically told them that despite all their ceremonial washing and cleansing, they were actually an example of the worst sort of uncleanness. His reference to an unmarked grave is from the Old Testament laws, which explain that any person who touched a grave was unclean. Sometimes a body would be buried in an unmarked grave, causing an unknowing traveler to become ceremonially unclean by walking over it. Jesus accused the Pharisees of being hidden graves who made others unclean by their spiritual rottenness. Like graves hidden in a field, the Pharisees corrupted everyone who came in contact with them. Woe to us if we ever become like these Pharisees, so consumed with our own image and personal honor that we don't even realize the influence of our wickedness. We don't even realize the influence our wickedness has in the lives of those who know us. Jesus teaches us that the eye is the lamp of the body. When your eye is good, your whole body is also full of light. But when it is bad, your body is also full of darkness. The eye is our motive. Is your eye focused on self, like the Pharisees who were compared to graves and full of death? Or is your eye focused on Christ, causing you to be full of light? It's all about motive. What's yours?